Hi guys, welcome to Make the Sawdust. I'm Kevin and thank you for joining me. Today we're going to be looking at a set of pattern router bits, 1/4 inch shank. My friends over at ZokMok Tools sent me a selection of router bits for me to try out, and this is a perfect opportunity for me to show you exactly what a pattern router bit does, how to set it up, what are the other functions of this, and other ways we can use it. So stick around, guys. Now these are relatively inexpensive bits, and I would say affordable bits. I wouldn't say cheap, but like you guys, if you're watching my channel, you want decent quality, but you don't want to pay a lot of money. Now, if you get into some very specialty bits, you're probably going to have to go with the big boy brands. But if you're shopping on Amazon, you probably see a ton of yellow bits. Not all router bits will perform equally across different materials or species of wood. This may have some weight in your decision to purchase a less popular brand of bit. So the project I'm going to be using these for is a noodle board or a stove cover project. And I've got to trim the panel to size, and one way to trim a panel is with a pattern bit or a flush trim bit with a fence. And I'm going to go over here and show you. I'll be using the 3/4 inch long bit to trim my panel. What I've done is I've clamped a fence to my panel. I've made a line where I would like to trim that. I'm basically squaring up my panel at this point. And I have set my fence so the edge of my router bit is right at that line. I'll make multiple passes with this, lowering my router bit each time. Now I'm not utilizing the function of my bearing of my pattern bit at this point. I am just using the fence and the base of my router. Cutting the panel to the final dimension is easily done the same as before, and I'm just trimming off any slivers left over from the thicker slats on my panel. I'm using this bit now in a more conventional way, allowing the top bearing to ride on my dado jig that I have here on my noodle board. I am routing a groove for some legs or some stands on the bottom side of the noodle board. I want those to be inset into the board. So I am cutting about 3/8 of an inch down into the noodle board using this dado jig. I'm honestly very impressed with the quality of these bits so far. You notice a little bit of pitch built up on the bearing itself, and that's going to be very common when you're routing any material, especially like pine. But notice there's not any pitch built up on the back side of the carbides. A little bit on the leading edge. That's more of just a kind of a dusty buildup. And also, you can see here I'm just scraping off. It's just a dusty buildup. These are still just razor sharp. I believe the geometry on these bits give it enough of a relief so the chips aren't hammered back into the material on this back side of the carbide, as you can see where I'm pointing right there. So to recap, guys, a pattern bit is a 2-flute carbide bit. In this case, they're a 1/2 inch diameter. We have a 1/2 inch diameter bearing along with a collar that can be tightened or taken off with a little set screw right there. So you could use this bit without the collar or the bearing. The collar actually holds that bearing down, so you can actually replace the bearing. I've noticed these bearings are actually a really high quality bearing. Some of the bearings that you'll buy on some of your cheaper brand bits are going to have a little bit of wobble to them. And when you're running it at a high RPM, that's going to create an oscillation in your bit and make your bit a little unbalanced, and could be eventually lead to a bearing failure. So conventionally, you'll use this bit, the bearing will ride against a pattern or a template, and the cutter will remove the material on your workpiece. In this case, ZokMok sent me a set of 4 pattern bits, 3 different sizes. They're in a metric length, so we have a 20 millimeter, we have a 25 millimeter, we have a 38 millimeter, and we also have a 11.9 millimeter, which are going to be our equivalents to like a 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, 1 inch, and 1.25 inches, I believe. Again, guys, thoroughly impressed with my ZokMok bits. In the next video, we're going to be looking at another style of flush trim bit. These are going to be a top bearing. Some guys call these a top bearing or a bottom bearing. Kind of depends on how you're using it in your router, but there is the difference in your flush trim bits or pattern bits. So these bits have 4 different diameters. We have a 1/2 inch diameter, we have a 1/4 inch diameter, 3/16 diameter, and a 3/8 diameter. We're going to be testing those bits along with some tongue and groove bits, some miter lock bits, and a slab flattening bit. Guys, thank you for joining me here at Making Sawdust. You guys that are sticking around to the end are rock stars. Make sure you click the subscribe button and the bell for all your notifications, and join me here next week. Get out in your shop and start making some sawdust.